Greetings! Welcome to Nina's World. This podcast provides a short respite from the trials and tribulations of everyday life. We're going to step back in time to the 1950s and 60s. And now, our story. Nina meets the bad girl. That girl is wearing pants in school. Christmas break was over, and the first grade was finally improving for Nina. After the teacher conference in November, Miss Herring no longer snapped her fingers when Nina needed a moment to think before answering. She even commented on Nina's careful printing, especially when Nina addressed her paper as instructed, starting at just the right place on the top line to fit her name without squeezing in the last letters as she arrived at the margin. Every once in a while, a classmate in her group asked Nina what a word was when stumped. Miss Herring was more relaxed, so the students were too. Of course, Nina and all the classmates still had to deal with Charlie, who thought he was the class clown, making faces when the teacher's back was turned and fart noises when she stepped outside the room. Even Nina laughed some of the time because the antics tickled her funny bone. When Nina told her mom about Charlie, the only comment was that he would grow up someday, adding that most boys do if they're lucky. Nina was friends with lots of the other girls and boys in the class, and that also made school more fun. Playing outside, even on the cold days, was okay because they'd run around a lot and keep warm. Some of the boys would even take off their jackets and place them at the beginning of their class line. Recess teachers telling them that they should put them back on or catch their death of cold was to no avail. Charlie retorted that colds were caught by germs. For all his silliness, Charlie, whose dad was a doctor, knew about such things. After lunch recess ended, it was read aloud time, and nothing but nothing would distract Nina from listening with both ears. Nothing until Miss Garrison, the principal, brought a new student into the classroom. Her name was Betsy, and Betsy wore pants. Pants in school. Pants with a belt, and a belt with a buckle, and suddenly no one, even Miss Herring, could think of what to say. The teacher placed the book she had been reading on a side table, lifted herself from the chair, brushed her skirt into place, and tentatively walked towards the new student, extending her hand, saying, "Well, hello, nice to meet you. I'm Miss Herring, your teacher." Betsy, completely unimpressed, replied, "Yeah, I know. The principal here told me. I was supposed to start tomorrow, but my mom had unpacking to do, so she dropped me off at school." Betsy used two hands to shake Miss Herring's hand, perhaps with more vigor than they anticipated, because when Betsy let go, Miss Herring rubbed her hands together as if warming them over a campfire. Charlie, in a stage whisper, stated the obvious to his seatmates. "Get a load of her. She's wearing pants. Never saw that in all my years." Betsy looked in his direction and stuck out her tongue. Even Miss Garrison, who probably saw plenty of bad behavior over the years, looked surprised but made no comment. Miss Herring said, "I have a desk ready for you over here. You can make your own name tag for your desk if you like." Betsy retorted, "Isn't that your job? Didn't you make a name tag for all the other kids? Why do I have to make my own?" Betsy plopped in her chair, crossed her arms, and waited for whatever would be next. While Miss Herring tried to compose herself, Miss Garrison suggested that each of the children stand one by one, introduce themselves, and say one thing that they like to do. Miss Herring went to the kids' water fountain, took several sips, dabbing at her mouth with her handkerchief, stood tall, and watched as each student followed the principal's suggestions. Hi, I'm Heidi. I like to draw. I like to jump rope. My name is Helen. Charlie's my name and joking's my game. And baseball's my name. I'm a fast runner. My name is really James, but you can call me Jimmy. Betsy interrupted. Do I have to call you anything? I don't even like baseball. Fortunately, Jimmy was already seated, because if he had not been, he would have fallen into his chair. Miss Garrison asked another child to stand to do an introduction, but no one volunteered. The children were so shocked they could barely remember their own names, let alone what they liked to do. The principal looked in Nina's direction. Nina looked over her shoulder, hoping someone else had appeared there, but no. Miss Garrison made a gesture. In other words, it was Nina's turn. Nina stood, shifted from one foot to the other, cleared her throat, took a breath, and said, Hello, my name is Nina. I'm learning to read. I like to read. I like to write too, and math is okay, but sometimes the numbers get stuck in my head, and I have to use my fingers, and oh yeah, I like recess too. Nina could not stop talking. And we have hopscotch and wall ball, and you can play too if you want. And Miss Herring reads stories to us every day, and I love story time. The other students started to laugh a little, either because Nina had turned into a chatty Cathy, or the more she talked, the longer it would be before it was their turn. And sometimes the music teacher comes in and we sing songs. Nina sat down. But before Miss Garrison or Miss Herring could make a remark, Nina stood back up again. And welcome to our school. Now everyone was laughing, and even Betsy cracked a smile. Miss Herring said, Well, that's fine, Nina. I'm sure Betsy and you will be friends, and you can be her escort and show her around the school. Nina looked at Miss Herring in disbelief, thinking, well, maybe you can imagine what Nina was thinking, or maybe you're not quite sure what Nina was thinking. But it wasn't warm and fuzzy. Goody, goody. Hooray for me. It was more like wondering how she could get out of being Betsy's special pal. As Miss Garrison excused herself from the room, she wished all the children well and thanked them for helping to make Betsy feel at home at the Maple Avenue Elementary School. Nina wondered if she could go back to kindergarten, into another first grade class, or maybe just stay home from school for the rest of her life. Arriving home, legs stinging from the cold, Nina pulled off her dress and pulled on her corduroys and polo shirt as she told her mom all about Betsy and how she wore pants in school, and stuck her tongue out at Charlie and told the teacher to make a name tag for her. Her mother looked up from the sewing machine and said, Be kind, Nina. Maybe Betsy was nervous because she was new and came into the classroom so late in the day. If she just moved, maybe the pants were what she had available. But I bet her legs weren't cold at recess. The next day, Betsy wore pants again, and this time the whole cafeteria crew and all the students saw her. They were startled, surprised, shocked, and started whispering and pointing at Betsy as she sashayed her way around the room, thumbs hooked onto the top of her pants, walking to the milk cabinet and back to the lunch table. Betsy was as bold as a gold star on a spelling test. Betsy had brought her lunch in a brown bag, just like Nina. They sat across from each other, most of the other students giving them elbow room and chatting only with their friends. Nina pulled out her bologna and cheese sandwich, unwrapped it, picked up half and started eating, saving the 2 small cookies for later. Betsy had a few peanut butter crackers wrapped in packing paper. Nothing else. The blustery, baldy Betsy looked down at the crackers and then at Nina's lunch. Nina, who never had more than a sandwich and a couple cookies, saw that even she had more than Betsy. Nina remembered what the Bible said about being kind to others. She said, hey, Betsy, I'm not very hungry today, but if I take this half sandwich home, my mom will make me eat it for dinner. Not waiting for a response, she shoved the wax paper and half sandwich across the table, unwrapped the cookies, and silently placed one next to the half sandwich. Changing the subject, Nina added, thanks. Hey, we're going to play hopscotch. If you don't know how, we can show you. I bet you'd be good at it. Betsy started to push the wax paper back to Nina. Stopped. Lifted the sandwich. Looked around to see who was watching, but no one was paying any attention. So she took a bite, a second bite, a gulp of milk. And looking at Nina, Betsy said, no problem. Anything I can do to help a pal. The end. Thank you for visiting with us today. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to this podcast and share it with everyone you know. Return next week for another story from Nina's World. This story was written and read by Christine McKee, with gratitude to Dr. Ethel Ratkin of Bucks County Community College for editorial consultation and encouragement. Additional heartfelt support from family, friends, and members of my writing groups. Technical support was provided by Mr. Dan Tarrant of Personally Catholic. Sound engineering by Mr. Andrew Kimmock of AK Productions. May you embrace peace in your heart, in your home, and in your world.